First, I'd like to thank the sponsor for today's class, Cheryl Schusterman. She's sponsoring. This is in honor of her mother's yahrzeit, in memory of her mother, Chaya Kela Bas Harav Yisrael Shmueli, or Shmuel, Bas Harav Yisrael Shmuel. And the Neshama should have an aliyah. Chaya Kela should go higher and higher in the heavenly worlds and watch over the entire family. Thank you so very much. We're trying out a new camera today, so hopefully it's a little clearer. We'll see once we get the video of it up on YouTube. We'll see if it got a little clearer for you. Where we left off last week, we left off where God says to Moshe, "I will not wipe them out." This is referring to the sin of the golden calf, and God says he will forgive them. However, God says that he will no longer lead themselves, that he will send an angel to lead the Jewish people, but for him to go himself is dangerous. Dangerous because if the Shekhinah, the divine presence, is right there and they sin, the divine presence will demand immediate justice. And therefore, it's in their best interest that God himself not be the divine presence, not be directly with the people in the wilderness, but that he sends an angel to lead. But now Moses is coming back down the mountain, and he's coming to the people. Moses will have to communicate directly with God, because the Torah can only be given from God to Moses, not through an angel. Over and over, the Torah is told to us is given not by the means of any angel. So if God needs to communicate with Moses, and God does not want to dwell amongst the people directly, we have a problem. How does God communicate with Moses, but yet not be within the camp of the Jewish people? And so the Torah tells us that Moses needed to move out of the camp, that he had to move his tent outside the camp of the Jewish people, so that when there would be any type of session between him and God, God could dwell with Moses, yet God wouldn't be dwelling in the camp of the Jewish people. So this tent of Moses became known as the holy place. That was the place where the divine presence was resting. Before there ever was a holy temple, before there was a tabernacle, before there was a tent of meeting as part of the tabernacle, there was the tent of Moshe. And the tent of Moshe was a holy place because God would dwell there in order to communicate directly with Moses. So whoever felt the need to draw near to God, to repent, to ask forgiveness, to pray, to feel spiritual, to thank God, they would come as close as they were allowed to Moses' tent. And there is where they would feel that sense of spirituality. They couldn't go all the way there because, again, there was supposed to be this separation. But Moses' tent became this focus point of holiness. And this is one of the sources that teach us that we travel to the house of a holy person, that we seek to be near a holy person because the holy person is close to God. I want to be clear. The holy person, the tzaddik, the righteous, the Rebbe, is not God, is a human being. But because of their level of holiness, because of their stature of holiness, because of their climb up the spiritual ladder, because of their achievements, because of their accomplishments, they are close to God. And because they are close to God, us coming close to them brings us to a state of a spiritual sense of feeling that closeness. This is why a tzaddik in this generation of exile is our holy temple. It's our place to go if we want to feel that sense of spirituality, because the tzaddik is close with the divine, still human, but divinely inspired. So if we feel the need to find spirituality within ourselves, to be in touch with our own soul, to know our own direction that we should take, we go to a tzaddik, we go to a holy person. He's not God's son. He's not God's partner. He is a person, a human being that made himself a vehicle for godliness. And thus Moshe is the first Rebbe. He's the first tzaddik. He is the individual that people now turn to get their sense of closeness to God. Because the tzaddik, the Moshe Rabbeinu of each generation, utilizes their free choice to walk in God's ways and fight God's battles. And he inspires this in others. He seeks to bring others close to God, not close to himself. The true tzaddik, the true leader, is not one that needs or wants followers of themselves. They're not interested in how many followers they have and how many chassidim they have under them. What they are looking for is how many people they can bring close to God. They seek no glory. They seek no praise. All they seek is that we praise and that we glorify God. You may have heard many stories of a tzaddik given a gift called Ruach HaKodesh. Ruach HaKodesh, literally translated, means a Holy Spirit. What does Ruach HaKodesh refer to, more practically speaking? It's an ability to see more than the physical eye could see. It's a spiritual vision. They're able to see the souls of man. They're able to see the souls of the human beings on the face of the earth, even those not in front of them. They have a sense, a certain feeling that they have about the connection that they feel to the souls of their generation. They're able to see that which is not before them, to know the struggles of others, to know the pain of others. And if indeed God grants someone this gift, it's not for the purpose of gossip. I know this about you. I know this about everyone. It's like, imagine you can see everyone's emails. You don't want to see what other people write about you. But the tzaddik has the ability to see everything, not for the purpose of gossip, but how they can improve. It's this spiritual intuition that they have that comes to their souls so that they can help and they can guide and they can inspire the people. I'll tell you a story, especially it's fitting as we get closer to Rosh Hashanah. It's a story about Rabbi Chaim Gutnick. He was the Rebbe's emissary in Sydney, Australia. And in the early years that he was there, he was contacted by the Jewish community in Adelaide, Australia. The high holidays were approaching, and the synagogue in Adelaide didn't have a rabbi. So the chief rabbi of Sydney sent the delegation that came to ask, what are we supposed to do? We don't have a rabbi. He said, why don't you get in touch with the Chabad rabbi, call Rabbi Gutnick, and see if he would come down and spend Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur with you. So they approached Rabbi Gutnick with this question, and he said, I have my own family. I have a wife. I have 4 young children. I can't leave them alone for the holidays. So I'm sorry, you're going to have to find someone else. So the committee again turns to the chief rabbi, and they say, what are we supposed to do? He turned us down. So the chief rabbi said, I'll let you in on a secret. This is what you need to do. You don't ask Rabbi Gutnick this question. Of course, he's not going to want to leave his family. You write a note to the Lubavitcher Rebbe, and you tell the Rebbe you need a rabbi for the high holidays. And you'll see the Rebbe already will take care of it. He'll tell Rabbi Gutnick to go, and Rabbi Gutnick won't ask any questions. Sure enough, they write a note to the Lubavitcher Rebbe that they need a rabbi in Adelaide, and that they had asked Rabbi Gutnick, and Rabbi Gutnick had said he cannot leave for the high holidays, and they don't know what to do. And the Lubavitcher Rebbe notifies Rabbi Gutnick, I'm a little surprised by your response to them. How is it that there's a Jewish community that doesn't have a rabbi, and you don't feel the need to go yourself? So I'd like to ask you to be my messenger, my emissary, and spend Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur in Adelaide. P.S. While you're there, please pay special attention to the needs of the Egyptian Jewish community that live in Adelaide. A strange P.S. Rabbi Gutnick arrives in Adelaide. He arrives the day before Rosh Hashanah, and he goes to the synagogue to survey it, to see the sanctuary. As he's standing in this empty sanctuary, a woman enters the room, and she asks him, what is the most sacred part of the synagogue? Can you point out What's the most sacred part of the synagogue? He was a bit surprised by the question, but he pointed to the Ark, the Holy Ark, the Aron HaKodesh, and he said that's where the Torah scrolls are. That's considered the holiest part of the synagogue. Before he can say another word, she rushes out the room, and she returns a moment later, and she's leading a blind teenage girl into the sanctuary, and she leads her up to the Ark, and then she leaves. This blind teenage girl kisses the curtains of the Ark, and she bursts into tears. And she stood there for several minutes, after which the woman that brought her in there, ushered her in, came back and escorted her out. It was a strange scene. So he tells this over to the secretary of the shul and said there was this strange, odd thing. One woman asked me about the holiest place in the synagogue, and I told her the Ark, and she brought in this blind girl. Do you know anything about who this girl is and what's going on? Because she seemed rather distraught. And the secretary says this to him, don't worry about it. She's one of the Egyptian Jewish community members. We don't have much to do with them. Her parents don't even come to the synagogue on Rosh Hashanah. So she probably came because it's so close to the holiday, so that's her prayers. Ignore it. He heard the key word. She's part of the Egyptian community. We don't have anything to do with them. And that P.S. of the Rebbe's notes suddenly started making a lot of sense. The Rebbe somehow knew that there was an Egyptian Jewish community there that was being ignored. And therefore, he really now wanted to know who was this girl and what was her needs. So he turns around to rush out of the synagogue to find the girl, but she's already gone. On Rosh Hashanah, indeed, there were a few members of the Egyptian Jewish community there in the synagogue. They sat in the way back. No one really spoke to them, and he was able to pick up this rift, this separation that took place. So he gave these individuals a lot of attention, spoke to them at great length on Rosh Hashanah, asked them about their community, told them to invite their other members of the community to join for the second day of Rosh Hashanah, to join for Yom Kippur. And then he asked, tell me, do you know someone from your community, a teenage girl that's blind? And one of them said, sure we do. Her name is Betty. Can you get word to Betty that I'm looking for her? I'd like to speak to her. Okay, we'll get word to her. Day after Rosh Hashanah, the phone rings. Rabbi Gutnick picks it up. The girl says, hello, my name is Betty. I understand that you're looking for me. And he says, yes. And at the moment he said, yes, I'm looking for you, the phone goes dead. Someone hung up on the call. That was odd. 2 hours later, a call again. This is Betty. I understand you're looking for me. And again, the phone goes dead. Now he's intrigued. He has to find out who this girl is and what's the story. And he makes his inquiries and he gets the address and he finds out where this Betty particular girl lives. And he makes his way to the house, even though it's already late at night and it's a day before Yom Kippur. He knocks on the door. The parents ask who's there, and he says, my name is Rabbi Gutnick. I'm the rabbi here just for the holidays. I'd like to speak to your daughter. And they say, we prefer that you don't. So he says, you know something? I really need to speak to your daughter. I really am going to ask you to please open the door. I need to speak to her. I believe she needs my help. And again, they try to decline, and again, he tries to ask. And finally, they let him in. And Betty comes out, and they're sitting there. And at some point, the rabbi asks the parents if he can have some private time, if he can just have her feel the freedom to speak her mind. And they did. They respected it. And Betty tells her story. Her family arrived in Australia a year before. They sent her to the only school in the city for the blind. Turns out it was a Catholic school. The people in the school were very, very nice, and they gave her parents, a full scholarship. After 5 months, the local priest began lecturing me about Christianity. And I ignored him. And I told him I'm Jewish. And at some point, my parents were notified by the school. And they said, look, your daughter, even if she's Jewish, is welcome to continue in our school. However, as far as the scholarships go, that's reserved for the Catholic community. And so we don't want to withdraw it from you. We already offered it to you. But it comes along with Betty becoming Catholic. If she converts and becomes part of the religion, we can continue giving her the scholarship. Otherwise, she's welcome to attend the school. But the scholarships are contributed money, funds that are there for the Catholic community. And my parents, says Betty to Rabbi Koenig, they don't have the funds. And the school is a good school. And I'm doing very, very well there. And it's the only school for the blind here in Adelaide. But at the same time, although I'm not a practicing Jew, I don't want to convert. And so we have this dilemma. What should we do? Do I convert to keep the scholarship? Or do I drop out of the school and I have no place to go? And my parents decided they're going to make the decision for me. For them, was most important was my education. And they basically let me know a few days ago that I should go ahead with it. I should go along with the conversion, and this way I'll be able to keep the scholarship. Right before Rosh Hashanah, I told my mother that I didn't feel well, that I couldn't go to school that day. I was alone in the house after they had left the home. I knocked on my Gentile neighbor's door, and I said, tomorrow's the Jewish New Year. My parents don't go to the synagogue, and I'd like to ask you to do me a favor. Take me to the synagogue so that I can pray before the Jewish New Year. I'll only stay for a few minutes. And my neighbor agreed. And she took me to the synagogue. She obviously met you, and you told her that I should stand next to the ark if I wanted the holiest place in the synagogue. I stood next to the ark, and I cried my heart out, and I prayed to God, and I said, God, I don't know what I'm supposed to do. This is a difficult dilemma. My parents and I understand why I need this scholarship so that I can attend the school. I wish I wasn't born blind. I wish I can go to any school, but that's not the situation of life that I'm in. And this is the only school, and they're kind to me, and they're nice to me, and they educate me. And they do have a scholarship fund, but as I understand their policy, it's reserved for people of their religion, of their faith. So my parents have reached this decision that it's more important for me to get the education and to give up on my religion, to convert to their religion. I don't know what to do. So I'm turning to you, God, right before Rosh Hashanah. You tell me what to do. Send me a message. Send me guidance. Otherwise, I'm going to have to go through with it. That's what I was doing there in the synagogue. And then a few days after Rosh Hashanah, I hear from friends within our community that say that there's a rabbi asking for me. Who is the blind girl, a part of the Egyptian community? And I knew that God was listening to my prayers, that God sent me a message, that somehow you have that message for me. And I tried contacting you, but my parents were very afraid. They were very reluctant. They knew what you would say to me, and therefore they don't want me to talk to you because they're afraid you're going to convince me out of it. And then they're going to be stuck with me going to a school that requires tuition that they cannot afford. The rabbi understood why he was in Adelaide and why specifically the Lubavitcher Rebbe wrote him a note and saying, you need to be in Adelaide this Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. And perhaps it wasn't so much because that particular synagogue didn't have a rabbi that could have found anybody. It was P.S. Pay attention to the Egyptian Jewish community, because there is a soul there. There is a Jewish soul that is hurting, that is in pain, that is in anguish, and that needs help and that needs guidance. So be there. He immediately calls up the president of the congregation who had contacted him and asking him to be the rabbi. This is already the night before Yom Kippur, and it's late at night. And he says, I need you to come to this address right now. Right now, it's almost midnight. Right now is right now, or you will not have a rabbi in your synagogue for Yom Kippur. You come to this address right now. Well, he gets a threat like that. He shows up. He says, I want to introduce you to a girl named Betty. She's part of this Jewish community. And you're the president of the congregation, which means you have a responsibility to every member of your community. This Betty is part of your community. You have a responsibility to her. And he repeats the story that Betty put before him. And he says, the community, before Yom Kippur, before tomorrow evening, before Kol Nidre, will raise the funds that is needed for Betty to continue going to this school and will not have to accept the scholarship because the Jewish community will do their part, the part that they should have done all along. They will pay the tuition, and Betty can continue going to this school. And you'll do your part. And while I'm on the subject, I don't appreciate the separation that takes place in your synagogue between the Egyptian community and the Australian community. It has to be one Jewish community. You can't isolate them. You can't have them just all in the back in their own group. You can't, the attitude is there. You feel it. You guys have to become one. This girl went through the high school over there. She stayed in touch with Rabbi Gutnick all through the years. She graduated high school with honors. And then after that, Rabbi Gutnick arranged for her to study in Jerusalem. She ended up getting married. She has a family of her own, and she lives a beautiful Jewish life in Israel. This was the Rebbe feeling, sensing the soul in pain, the soul in anguish. That's the Ruach HaKodesh. That's this Holy Spirit that God gives to individuals, to holy individuals that have earned it, that devote their lives to caring about others and feeling the pain and the anguish of others and finding ways to bring some joy and finding ways to bring some spirituality and to bring some enlightening. On the subject of the Lubavitcher Rebbe during his decades of leadership, he didn't take a single vacation, not a single day off, because his life was about caring for others. And during his years, he delivered thousands and thousands of public discourses, and he responded to millions of letters and requests for advice and requests for blessings about life, about health, about marriage, about children, livelihood, education, business, Torah, science. He met with thousands upon thousands of people. Every Sunday from 1986 to 1992, the Rebbe would see online anyone that would want to come see him, and he would give each one a $1 bill to give to charity, to pass on a mitzvah onwards for those that are in need. You should know that in 1986, when the Rebbe started this, he was already in his late 80s. And he began that every single Sunday, thousands upon thousands of people would come see him, one person at a time, one soul at a time. And the Rebbe would stand from morning till evening, and he would not take a break. He would not drink a sip of water. He would stand the entire time greeting each and every single individual. You try doing that for one Sunday, let alone doing that for year after year after year after year. The tzaddik. Why we seek a tzaddik in our lives, why we seek a holy individual. We see that Moses was our first Rebbe. And the narrative tells us that when the Jewish people in the camp, they would see Moses walk from the camp to the tent of meeting, to this tent that he had outside the camp, they would all stand up. They would all rise. And the whole camp would stand at attention, so to say, out of respect for their leader, making his way outside the camp. And what do you think they would be thinking the whole time? They would be thinking, oy, what did we do that we had to have, that when God would want to speak to Moses, he would have to leave the camp. He used to be able to be amongst us, and God would speak to him. We lost that. We blew it with the sin of the golden calf. And that would inspire not depression, but repentance, return, a desire to reconnect. The Torah tells us that the relationship that God had with Moses, the Torah calls it panim el panim, face to face. What does it mean, face to face? Certainly God doesn't have a face. Maimonides explains that it means without any intermediary. There were 4 differences between the prophecies of Moses and those of all other prophets. Number 1, most other prophets God communicated through an angel. The angel delivered the message to the human being. Most other prophets came in dreams or in a state of drowsiness. Most other prophets experienced convulsions and extreme agitation while they were going through a state of prophecy. If you've ever heard the word meshuga, Meshuggah is a word we use when you call someone a meshugana, right? A little bit crazy. Meshuggah, you've heard that expression. The first time we find that word Meshuggah is in the books of the prophets, and it describes the prophet. It called the prophet Meshuggah. Why was the prophet called Meshuggah? Because while he was in a state of prophecy, he looked like a Meshuggah. He was out of control. His body was out of control. His hands, his legs, his facial expressions, sometimes they would roll around on the ground. They would lose control of their physical controls of their body because they were in this extreme state of prophecy. Number 4, all of the prophets experienced prophecy at divine moments, meaning when the divine will summoned them. By Moses, it was direct between God and him, no angel. It wasn't in a dreamlike state. It was direct. And he remained calm all throughout. He remained in control of his physical body the entire time. And Moses could request at any time the privilege of speaking to God. It wasn't only when God summoned him, but Moses had, they say you always want to know if you're trying to get a meeting with someone, you want to know their secretary's first name and her birthday because you want to send her birthday cards and flowers on her birthday because she's the key to getting you the meeting you need. Moses had the phone number of the secretary. He knew how to get in. He had the right to summon God for an appointment. No one else had that. 4 things that Moses as a prophet had over all other prophets. And it was this kind, by the way, of prophetic experience that each and every single one of our ancestors experienced at Sinai during the revelation. During the revelation at Sinai, for that brief moment, we all experienced that level of prophecy, direct, not through an angel. It wasn't a dream. It was real. We felt God's presence. The words to describe the Sinai experience was ayin ba'ayin nira. It was an eye-to-eye experience. It was an eye-to-eye contact. It's not as powerful as the panim bepanim, the face-to-face that describes Moses. But it's really powerful. Eye-to-eye, direct. In fact, we find one other description used in the Torah to describe the Moses-God communication, and that is peh el peh, mouth to mouth. It is noteworthy that these words about Moses and the closeness of the relationship, that the Torah describes how close they were, that panim al panim, that Moses is trusted in my house. Moses can come here at any time. Moses has a relationship direct with God, not through an angel. When is this all being taught to us? Interesting. It's not said following the revelation at Sinai. It's said after the sin of the golden calf. Isn't that interesting? He became even greater after the sin of the golden calf due to the way that he handled the crisis and how he defended the Jewish people before God. That's when the relationship blossomed. It wasn't, obviously it was great before, and it was great at the Exodus from Egypt, and it was great at the revelation at Sinai. But when Moses needed to take on the role as the defender of the Jewish people, as the attorney of the Jewish people, and literally wrestle with God through it all, that's when this relationship became one higher than any other relationship with any other human being ever. Because he was able to move God from the seat of justice to the seat of mercy. Instead of causing a separation between him and God, this battle, this confrontation brought them even closer together. You know, that very word Yisrael, which means to wrestle with God. To wrestle with God doesn't mean we're distant. In fact, when one wrestles with someone else, they're closer than they ever were before. So the wrestling, the fact that they're doing battle on such a high, powerful level, it brought them closer together. I want to take a moment just to give you a chronological order of what we've been studying. I'm going to give it to you on the Hebrew dates, tell you about when that falls out on the English calendar. Let's start with the 6th day of the month of Sivan on the Jewish calendar. That was the Sinai revelation. That's when the 10 Commandments were given. That's the holiday of Shavuot today. It usually takes place late May, early June. The 17th day of the month of Tammuz is when Moses broke the tablets. So that's 40 days of Moses going up and studying with God, being informed on the final day about the sin of the golden calf, coming down the mountain, seeing the golden calf, seeing the worship, and he breaks the tablets. That's on the 17th day of the month of Tammuz, which, by the way, is a fast day on the Jewish calendar, and it's usually in the month of July. On the 18th day of the month of Tammuz, one day thereafter, he burns the calf and he punishes the sinners. On the 19th day, 2 days after Moses breaking the tablets, he goes back up to God, up the mountain, for 40 more days to seek forgiveness and to beg for mercy. On Rosh Chodesh Elul, on the first day of the month of Elul, which we just passed a few days ago, it was Thursday and Friday of last week. So figure last Friday is when Moses comes back down the mountain to talk to the people. It is on that day that God summons him to return yet for another 40 days to receive the second set of tablets. And that will take place, that Moses will get the second set of tablets and he will return down the mountain to the people, with the people being totally forgiven. Can you guess which day that will be? Count 40 days from Rosh Chodesh Elul. It gets you to the 10th day of the month of Tishrei. You know it as Yom Kippur, the day of forgiveness, the day that God pardons the Jewish people for the sin of the golden calf, the day that Moses comes back to the people with a second set of tablets. So that's a little bit of an understanding that the time period that we're talking right now, we're in the month of Elul, we're coming up to Rosh Hashanah, coming up to Yom Kippur. This is the time frame that this actual story of thousands of years ago takes place in the Torah. Now, I told you that God tells Moses, okay, you win on that I won't wipe them out, and you win on the forgiveness, but what you don't win is the one change will be that I will send an angel, and it won't be me leading them, and that's why Moses has to move his tent out of the camp. But if we know anything about Moses, and we do, we've studied a lot about him over the years, we know that Moses pushes the envelope. Moshe also knows timing. He knows when to try certain things, and he waits for the opportune time. And at some point, he's going to push the envelope as far as it can be pushed. And he'll take this relationship between a human being and God to the very limit of that human knowledge of God of that we can possibly handle. He'll take it to the max. Let's keep this in mind. Moses started with God saying, I will wipe them out. Stand back and I wipe them out. And he gets God to agree not to wipe them out. The next step is to bring about forgiveness, and he gets that. But he gets it with a condition, I'll send an angel. Now Moses is going to go the next step. What do you think that is? Angels are nice, God. Very nice. Very nice. But can we get this back to where it used to be? Can we really bring about total forgiveness, total pardon, and have you come back to us? Have you join us, not just the angel? You told me to take these people onwards, but you weren't clear with me when you made that arrangement with me that you were going to have someone else handle the itinerary. You told me you're going to be with me. That's what you said to me. I should leave, but you will be with me every step of the way. That was the deal at the burning bush. That's what you said to me. I know they messed up. I know this. I know about that. But you told me, God, now in our conversations, that you feel close with me, that I'm trusted in the whole heavenly world. You say there's something unique about our relationship. But why would you send an angel then? That's not what I had in mind. If I have truly found favor in your eyes, let there not be any distance between us. Let it be you yourself, God. That God should come back and dwell amongst the people, and God should lead. If I have found favor in your eyes, then let me cash in on this. What does it mean to find favor in God's eyes? See, Moses knew he wasn't getting a paycheck for this job. He wasn't getting any physical rewards. He didn't need any money. He didn't need a house in the wilderness. He didn't need a car. He didn't need a vacation. He definitely needed a vacation, but he wasn't getting one. So when you say that there's something special about our relationship, what credit can I possibly cash in on for this? And if I indeed can ask for something, for one thing, I'm going to ask for there to be that closeness again. Moses will say these words to God. He'll say, God, show me your ways. I want to see you. Let me see you. Because even in our closeness of a relationship, there's something always hiding. Teach me more about you. Teach me how you make your decisions. Many commentaries say Moses was asking the ultimate question, the question of why do good people suffer and bad people prosper? I don't understand things that I see. Not everything that I see makes sense to me. The Talmud says that Moshe was confused by the seeming contradictions in his faith. And that has always disturbed him. When we saw this from the very beginning, when Moses saw people suffer, he turned to God and says, how does a God of goodness behave in such an evil way? He didn't understand how bad things can come forth from a good God, especially to good people, to innocent people. And it always disturbed Moses. It always bothered him. Well, if we're close, God, and we have this close relationship that you're describing to me, teach me that. Teach me that. And God will respond to Moses surprisingly by saying, you got it. Panai Elechu, my presence will go. It will be me and not an angel that will lead the Jewish people. He grants that. And Moses will respond when he hears the good news that God says, I'm coming back, it will be me. Moses says, I'm glad you said that, God, because I want to tell you something. I had no intentions of leaving this place until you would grant that. I wasn't going to move. I was going to go on strike. I'm not going with no angel. I'm not going to go through this wilderness taking care of 2 million of your people with some angel leading the way. If you would have kept your decision not to lead, I would stay here. It's an interesting verse, and all the commentaries jump on it and say it doesn't make sense for Moses to be saying this. You just heard from God, the greatest gift that you can get. You say, thank you. You don't say, oh, by the way, I'm glad you said that because otherwise I was going to threaten you. God granted you this great request. It was total forgiveness, total pardon, and at the same time that God himself was going to lead. It should have ended with Moses saying, thank you so much. And then, of course, we know Moses, he's Jewish. It would move on to the next request that he has for God. And that would be, show me your ways. I want to see you. We'll touch upon that more next week. But what does it mean when Moses comes back without the thank you? Just wanted you to know that I had no intentions of continuing this journey if you would not have changed your mind. It's a lengthy response, so I'm going to keep you in suspense a little bit. We'll wait till next week to answer that question, and we'll continue on this discussion between Moses and God and how close a human being can possibly get to God and still remain a human being. And then we'll start the discussion about the second set of tablets. For all information about high holidays, visit the website chabadconejo.com/HH2020. I know in the beginning of the summer when we were supposed to take the summer off, I said I'm going to give class for July and August, and this is the last Wednesday of August. So now I'm going to tell you we'll continue class through September as well. So we'll see you all next Wednesday. We'll just continue getting together, studying Torah together. And we very much look forward to when God will heal this world. And so we'll be able to have our Lunch and Learn class with lunch being served in the classrooms here. And we'll keep it on Zoom as well for those that are now joining from throughout the world. Have a wonderful week, everybody. If you'd like to join me for the sermon on Friday, it'll be at 3 o'clock. And you can always find the links in the emails I send out or on our websites. By the way, the fall semester is now on the website. You can go to jewishacademy.com and you can have a sneak preview before we publicize it, but it's already live. jewishacademy.com, and you're able to see the whole fall semester there. Have a wonderful week, everybody. Take care. Thanks for joining.